Okay, so the first fly this evening we're going to do is a relatively easy fly called a blue-winged olive spinner. And a spinner is the fly after it's hatched to it done. It comes back maybe hours or days later, depends on the type of fly. And then it mates and it dies. The males and females die. And the spinner is meant to replicate that fly that has died, and it's on top of the water, because most of these bugs will mate over streams and ponds or whatever, and it's meant to replicate that dying or dead fly. Okay, so we're going to work with blue-winged olives all night here, but just change the colors and so forth for other flies. What I have on here is a size 14 dry fly hook, and I just put on some olive thread, and I wrapped it back, pre-wrapped it back to about the point. Now there's a lot of different things you can do with tails. One of the things is something like this. It's called a micro fibet or fibet, and it's made out, it's kind of a plastic material. They're not that expensive, but you can also make these tails out of hackle fibers. So it's a good way to use up some of the larger feathers that you may not use a lot, because they'll have the bigger barbules on it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And the first thing I need to do is put on a tail. So I'm just going to take off one of these feathers. And what I'm going to use is not the very fluffy part. I'm going to come off, maybe up in this area, because I want the length on it, but I don't want this fluffiness part down in here. So I just kind of spin that out a little bit so I can work with it. I'm going to take maybe, I don't know, 6 barbules, something like that. Because you're going to probably drop 1 or 2 here or there, and I just got a little clump of them like this. And I'm going to tie them on so they're about the length of the hook shank. And I just put it back where our thread had ended, and I come around and I put them on top of the hook. Now there's a lot of different ways you can get the spread. This one just kind of spread out, so I'm just going to leave it like that because that's not bad at all. So we're just going to leave it like that. I'll secure some of that in. And then I'm going to come back because the next thing I need is my biot. Now instead of an actual biot, I used the bigger part of the flight feather. And what I did was cut it out of this bigger section, gives me a little more to work with. Okay? And especially on smaller hooks, because they're thinner than the biot, it works out pretty well. So you can use that side of the feather as well. Want you to turn the feather biot towards you, so the bottom is towards you. You're going to tie it in by the tip. I usually just take that little bit of a tip off of it because a lot of times it'll break on you. And I don't really need that for length.
What was that feather biot? A goose?
That is a turkey feather. And the one reason I like to use these, are fairly durable. These biots, and you can get them in all kinds of colors. There's a lot of flies in one feather. Okay, so I've got it tied in with the bottom of the biot pointing up, and then I'm just going to wrap this around. And the reason I use it pointing up, because I'm going to try to get that little rib going like we did the other day. You can also use a hackle pliers with this if you want.
All right, so before we mount the actual thing, you gotta deal with it.
And I'm going to take it up into the thorax area. That's where I want to tie it off on.
There's actually some tools that will help with that, like,
Okay.
someone makes something with beads, or basically.
If I have some excess, I'll clip that off. I don't want anything to interfere with the eye.
On the jaws and the handle, it opens the jaws.
And then secure that down and bring it back to about the quarter mark from the eye. Back to the quarter mark. Now the next thing we want to put on are some wings. You can use a lot of different things for wings. Crystal flash, CDC feathers, a lot of different things. But what I'm going to use tonight is sparkle organza.
Yeah, exactly.
And it comes in this kind of a webby sheet, and then you can just take off whatever number of threads you want to work with, and bring those together. And I'm just going to tie it over the top of the fly right at that quarter mark with a couple wraps like so. And then I'm going to bring it back and do a figure 8. So I'm going to get those out pretty straight on each side. And then if they're too long, you can shorten them up, you can cut them off. I like the wings about maybe, I don't know.
Not always.
They don't have to be real long. You can make them whatever length you want, of course. Something like that.
But in our case,
Okay, so we've got her tail in, we've got her biot on, and now I'm just going to do a couple more wraps maybe with this to secure that wing a little bit. So they're perpendicular with the hook.
okay,
Now, if you want to, you can take some super glue and put a very small touch of super glue on there and secure that in. I'm not going to do that tonight. Give it a second to set up, and those wings will not move for you in or out. Then the last thing I'm going to do is just take a little dubbing.
so there's my.
This is olive, but you could use other colors if you wanted to. You don't need a lot, maybe something like that. And I'm going to make a real thin noodle on it, just like if I was going to use dubbing for a body.
Remember what it.
Okay, and I'm going to bring that up a little bit.
Talked about with respect to mounting.
And then I'm just going to do the same thing with some wraps, figure 8 wraps. And try to build up a little thorax there, help to secure those wings a little bit. Okay, it's pretty well covered on the bottom. Then I'm going to finish this off.
I want to try to average that curve. The concept's the same.
And make just a little head, is fine.
Maintain as best you can a parallel.
And then I can cement that knot.
Not flat, but.
Now, I caught a couple fibers, not a big deal. We're just going to take them off.
And also know that.
And there you have a basic spinner.
Obscure too much.
So you have a nice little tail going. You've got a nice biot body. You could use dubbing if you want. You've got a nice set of sparkly wings kind of sticking out there. I see there's one that's extra long. Clip that. And you've got a nice little thorax. So if you want to do Hendrickson's or something else, just change the colors. This is the basic dry fly spinner. When that floats on the water, the sparkle stuff, the wings, we're going to lay in the water itself, and it's going to create an impression for the fish of that dead bug that's mated and it's fallen onto the water. Okay, let's go ahead and tie a couple.